What is the secret to unlocking your full potential? What makes your idols any different than you? How do you become the person you've always wanted to be in life? This is where you get all of your questions answered. My name is Justin Shank, and I sit down with some of the most epic individuals who are changing the world with their actions in business and in life. We discuss how they did it, why they pushed themselves, and more importantly, how they were able to focus on continuous growth to achieve their dreams. Welcome to the Growth Now movement. This week, I sit down with magician Justin Flom. Justin is truly creating a magical career. He's gone on tour with Florida Georgia Line, has performed for Ellen, Nick Jonas, John Legend, the entire Seattle Seahawks team. He's had his own television show on the SYFY network, and he continues to evolve his craft and his business. With over 1 billion streams of his videos through Facebook and YouTube, Justin is truly changing the magic scene. This conversation was a lot of fun. We talk about the art of magic, the history of magic, but we also talk about business, how to create viral content that people are willing to share out, and how to truly take your business, your life to a magical level. Now, before we get to the episode, I just wanted to take a second and let you know that we have officially announced the final speaker for Growth Now Movement Live. So adding to the lineup of people like Albie Manzo, Sarah Centrella, Justin Cavanaugh, Terry Weaver, and Susie Miller is my good friend, massive entrepreneur and celebrity chef, Fabio Viviani. This is a guy who has changed my life. I've seen him speak. He is mind-blowing from the stage, and I know you guys will absolutely learn so much from him. So make sure you go to gnmlive.com and get your tickets today. There's still a handful left, so go grab them, and I cannot wait to see you guys and connect with you there. Now, without further ado, I give to you Justin Flom. Justin Flom, welcome to the Growth Now Movement, man.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm excited about the conversation because as I was alluding to you before we got into the hit the record button, English.
Yeah.
I love magic. It's something that has always intrigued me. As a young kid, I would try. My parents would buy me those little kits, and they'd buy me tickets to magic shows, and I was awful at it. But it still intrigues me now as a 34-year-old adult, and I love watching it. As the art of magic grows, it becomes more and more mind-blowing. And Michael Robinson introduced us, and the first clip that I saw was you on Ellen. And you did this crazy thing with Apple earbuds with like the whole string.
Yeah, man.
And mind-blowing. But why don't we dive into who you are and kind of how you even got into magic?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Magic is evolving pretty fast now. It's kind of amazing. The stuff that, like you said, the clip I did on Ellen DeGeneres and things like that. If you would have showed them to 12-year-old Justin, 20 years ago, I would have gone, well, these have to be camera tricks. There's no other way. But magic has gotten so good, and it's so far away from the guys sawing a lady in half with these big Las Vegas style boxes. It's really gotten to a cool place. But I grew up in a magic home. My dad was a magician. My uncle was a magician. I mean, even great grandfather, amateur magician. But that's the way it was. It's the way it still is. Men in particular, young boys, they always have an interest in magic. They buy kits and all this. It's just the people in my family tree tended to take it very seriously. So my dad, his first date with my mom was a magic show where she was the magic assistant. So it's so funny. Nobody else will be able to see this, but I'm in my office right now, and you can see it because you have me on camera here. But look, that is my dad sawing my mom in half.
That is so great.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
It just happened to be on my desk next to me as I'm kind of shuffling through quite a lot of memorabilia. So I am a second or third generation magician, however you want to define it. I was 2 years old when I jumped out of my first magic box. So the real question is, how do you take a casual interest like that? Because my dad was an insurance salesman.
Right.
He was not a professional magician, even though he built these big professional magic tricks to do for Christmas parties and local church events or county fairs. For me, it became a life. It became a career and a whole journey.
Yeah. Was there a moment that you're like, this is what I'm doing the rest of my life, or was it just forever? Like you said, you jumped out of a magic box at 2, but you don't make those decisions at 2.
There's a clip from a Christmas party, and I'm probably 6 years old. My dad makes me appear out of a box, and you can kind of see it in my face when the crowd goes wild. And by crowd, I mean a dozen relatives. And you see in my face like, oh, whatever this is like some hot stuff. This is applause and stage, because in my basement we had a stage built. So very strange childhood if you grow up in a magic home. My bedroom was behind a moving bookcase.
That's amazing, actually.
Yeah, there was 3 secret passageways in my house, and then a little miniature stage. So stage larger than a lot of comedy clubs, with a curtain and lighting and stage. So we would put on shows as a kid. And that's when I decided, just growing up around all of that, that was when I decided this is, I think, the life, the career I want. Now, when you're a kid, you don't realize the work that's going to go in.
Right.
As Jerry Seinfeld's manager says, it's called show business. It's not show fun. It's not show fun, it's show business.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's funny you say that, because that's where I was kind of going to transition into, because, magic is one of those things that it takes hours and hours and hours and days and months and years and decades to really perfect. And I'm sure, as somebody who, again, I mean, we didn't say this yet on the recording, but you have over 1 billion streams of your videos and your content on social media and all the other platforms. And that's really mind blowing, actually. But I'm sure you still are trying to perfect things. You still work hours every single day to really perfect that craft. Is that true?
It's not being satisfied with anything. I mean, my career now, and we'll kind of take a journey through what allowed me to do what I do now. But what I do now, I get to do private events for companies, television, different. I get to tour and do my own shows. That all comes from the 1 billion views on social media. But I don't get to now stop. There's very little momentum in the social media views realm of things. So that number, that currency is only as good as you keep it going. You have to continue that work. So, for example, I got 200 million views on this video I did where I sawed my baby in half.
I saw that. I watched that today on Instagram.
Yeah, it's amazing. I took my little baby girl and we cut her in 2 pieces, and it went really viral, mostly on Facebook, where it did 200 million plus. On YouTube, it did 10 million, which are just insane numbers. But that doesn't equate to as much as another video I did 6 or 7 years ago that only got 4 million views. Okay, but that 4 million viewed video put me on the Ellen show. So there's different kinds of value to things like that. But sorry, I interrupted. You were transitioning into something.
No, for sure. But that's actually a great point. And so I talk to a lot of people in the influencer space, and I'm friends with a lot of them. And we talk about how when we get those big breaks or potential big breaks, like an Ellen show, or, I got listed as a top 8 podcast to follow by Inc. magazine. And I was somebody who was able to kind of take that and transition that into massive growth, where I know other people on the list who weren't able to do that.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the business, right? So like you said, 20 million views, cool. It didn't do much for you, or 200 million views, cool. It didn't do much for you, but 4 million views launched you into another platform, another opportunity. Are you able to now notice the difference between the two and what kind of content you need to put out?
Yeah, you can definitely notice what moves the needle and what doesn't. For example, next week I'll be on the Today Show on NBC, and I enjoy doing it. It's fun, but that show doesn't move the needle for me anymore. Whereas the Ellen show, that was a life-changing day.
Yeah.
Where there's definitely, there's BE an AE, before Ellen and after Ellen point in my career. So basically, here's the interesting, and I always tell young magicians and young entrepreneurs, they go, how do I do what you're doing? What piece of advice? And they never like my advice, because the advice is always put in a decade. And that is like the most depressing thing if you're 17 years old and you hear that. But that's what it was for me. And I haven't really seen anyone else do it. Now, the decade isn't always visible.
Right.
So for me, and I say decade, but it could have been less, could have been more, depending. Because if I started when I was 2 years old, I mean, really, I put in 2 decades before Ellen. But most of that's childhood. That doesn't count. That's not fair. So I put in 10 years from hard career magic work before the Ellen show, where I started making money. And the year before the Ellen show, I was in complete poverty level income with nothing.
Yeah.
Very little to show for it. But you wouldn't know that from the social media side when I was putting in a lot of work. So the general background here, I'll give you the background of the career. After high school, I moved to a small little sleepy showbiz town called Branson, Missouri. And in Branson, there's 150 shows that, like, it's insane. There's 50 or so theaters. And I don't just mean like,
that's interesting.
We got a little dinner. Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm not just talking like we've got a theater in the back of Golden Corral, although that does exist. I'm talking full.
I'm going to Branson just to go to that theater.
Yeah, and it's the biggest. It's the highest grossing per capita Golden Corral in the country, I believe.
Wow.
And it's a great Golden Corral. But you can, when you are in Branson, there's 50 or so freestanding theaters, and I was one of them, and I built my own theater.
Wow.
About $300,000 building a theater. And then I tanked it, just ran that puppy into the ground because, and this was, I learned every piece of business, everything I needed to learn. I learned in Branson. It was my college, because I didn't go to college, but this was that education. For example, there's just too much competition in that town. That pie is not big enough, and we haven't figured out a way to make it bigger. So I did 5 years in that town, and lost about $500,000.
Wow.
And that was, a great education for my show. I got to perform twice a day, every single day, for real people. Even if the audience size was only 20 people, which it was oftentimes. There's too much competition in the town. The town is run by ticket brokers. So these days in Vegas and Branson and other places, you don't go to the theater and buy tickets. You buy them at Golden Corral or at your hotel or at Vegas.com. And that's a reseller who's taking a cut of the price. And it could get in the weeds really quickly, but
totally.
The shows have special deals and there's more incentive to sell this show than that show. So the most quality shows aren't the shows that are being pushed. Long story short, that was not a situation that I could win in that little town of Branson. 8 million people still go there every year, and see shows, and you can go see, good friends of mine like the Haygoods, who are incredibly talented people and deserve all the success they've had in that show. And you can also see some more, it's just some funny shows, there. Very redneck craziness. Anyway, so I leave that town. I move to Las Vegas, where we start to create online content. I get rid of all the big illusions. I get rid of all the big, kind of glitzy Las Vegas, fire and sawing a lady in half sort of stuff.
I think it's funny that you move to Las Vegas and then you get rid of the Vegas.
Yeah, I haven't thought of it that way, but people say, well, why Vegas if you're not going to have a Las Vegas show, which I don't want, for the same reasons of all the things I learned in Branson. That hustle to get people to get butts in seats is not something I'm interested in. But you move to Vegas because if you're a songwriter, you live in Nashville. If you're a Broadway dancer, you have to live in New York. If you're a magician, you live in Vegas because that's where the creators are. That's where the writers are, the creative types. So now I have relationships with all these amazing thinkers, and their job is to come up with magic tricks. That's their job. And you don't even think about it, but on the underbelly of magic, you have the performers, but then you also have these guys who have to invent the impossible things.
Yeah.
And most people have you ever thought about something like that?
Never in my life. Never in my life.
That's because the magician doesn't really want you to think about that usually.
Right.
But I think it's interesting. To me, I think the modern day audience is far more interested in that because I think the modern day audience understands that this is just an industry, like plumbing.
Yeah, we don't magic isn't really like, I'm actually going to make this pen disappear. We understand that this is an art form. I've
figured out there's a few trap doors inside your brain, and you've got certain assumptions about the world. And if I can take advantage of those assumptions and the way you think about that pen and the different surroundings, then I can make it appear and really make your brain believe for a moment that pen disappeared. And then there's a fun thing of do I play with the fact that, yes, you know that it couldn't have actually disappeared, but what do you feel about it? There's all sorts of different ways that you can take wonder and astonishment. So we can talk very technical about the sleight of hand, how to make something appear or disappear. Or we can talk about the more emotional side of things, which is wonder and astonishment, and how to take adults, grown ass men, to actually feel the wonder of a kid.
Yeah.
Because I have a 2-year-old little girl, and everything to her is magic because she's learning about the world. So a microwave, a stovetop, those are magic things. A candle, that is magic to a 2-year-old because they don't know what that is.
Yeah.
At the same time, then a 2-year-old is terrible at watching magic tricks, because if I just make a quarter disappear for a 2-year-old, they go, okay, I guess that's what that quarter does. Like, they're being introduced to the world. They don't realize, no, quarters don't disappear. That's not what they do. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I also saw on your Instagram. By the way, it's so funny. I don't do much research before I talk to people because I like it just to unfold naturally.
Yeah, it's fun.
But I did a deep dive on your Instagram because I just like that kind of stuff. And you did like the go-go gadget finger and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you do a very good job at keeping her attention. I will say that for a 2-year-old. Because I'm dating somebody with a 2-year-old, and it's almost impossible to keep her attention for more than half of a second.
Absolutely.
So I couldn't even imagine what it's like. But I'm intrigued by the fact that you moved to Vegas and you go, I'm going to create online content. So what year was this, and what made you decide to do that?
I got married in 2009. We got married and moved to Vegas, which again is kind of the opposite. People usually do the opposite of that. And we got to Vegas 2009. First I did 3 years of cruise ships, struggling on cruise ships. And I reached the ceiling of the income there really quickly. Because it's not hard. It's just, I had the show from the days in Missouri, in Branson. So reaching the ceiling of pay. And as soon as I got to the ceiling, I'm 21, 22 years old. And I look around and it's like, this is not good. I can't do 50 more years of this at this pay.
Yeah.
Like, there's no upward mobility at that point. So I told my wife, I said, we're going to take a giant risk. We're going to stop this. We're going to take a full year and we're not going to make any money. She's like, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to film online videos and we're going to pitch a TV show for a year. That was the plan. Me and my buddy Rick Lax, my writing partner, and your listeners have probably seen Rick Lax's videos on Facebook because he has over 1 billion views. He's the guy who would have you think of a number, do some math, and he'd tell you what number you're thinking. Yeah. And he doesn't do those types of videos anymore because Facebook changed the algorithm, and he rides that algorithm like a surfboard. That's his job. But he's one of the most viewed people on Facebook. So he and I kind of developed this plan. We're going to film this content, and then we're going to pitch this TV show. And by the end of the year that I had just done no work, I had made poverty level income, but I had 2 appearances lined up on Ellen DeGeneres, and we sold a YouTube video of mine to SYFY channel as a TV show called Wizard Wars. And that was the game changer year. So that would have been 2012 or 13.
Wow.
I think.
That was the year you took off.
Yeah. I think we took off 2012, and then 2013, everything hit.
Yeah.
And from the Ellen show, I was able to do this TV show called Wizard Wars, which was kind of like Iron Chef or Chopped with magic. So the magicians get ordinary objects, ingredients, if you will, and they have to create magic out of that. You can now download all the episodes on iTunes, and they're really fun to watch. We did 2 seasons before the president of SYFY changed and redid the whole schedule and all that, which is a bummer. But from that TV show, I was able to launch a career with country music, where I toured with the band Florida Georgia Line on their first arena headlining tour. So I'm playing, I was hosting the show in between Thomas Rhett and FGL and another guy, Frankie Ballard, all amazing artists. And I'm doing Madison Square Garden, like 20,000 people in these amphitheaters in Texas, all across the country.
Was that scary for you to go to a music concert and be the magician guy? Like that's intimidating.
Yeah, initially it was. Some inside baseball talk would be, as a magician, how do I endear myself to these people? Because I was in between all the acts, and this would be traditionally the time that they would go and get beer. Now, first of all, hats off to Florida Georgia Line, the guys, because they were like, well, first of all, it was a YouTube video for a Walmart production company that I was doing for free. And that's a piece of advice for your listeners is if someone says do something for free, yeah, just do it. Like, you don't know what's I always just say yes to everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they said, can you do a version of one of your YouTube videos for this Walmart company called My Country Nation? And the concept was you travel across country to a Florida Georgia Line concert where you hope to meet them and do a magic trick for them. That was the bit, the premise. And Florida Georgia Line, who I'd never met or talked to, they were like, yeah, we'll watch a magic trick for a YouTube video. Fine. So I travel cross country. We do magic in New Orleans and across the desert and all these different places. And I show up in Jacksonville, Florida for this concert, and I do magic for him backstage. And the guy, Tyler, one of the guys in the band, he's like, that was amazing. You want to go on tour? And I was like, well, he's just being nice on camera. That's cool. That'll make a good clip. But actually, right after the cameras turned off, management came over and was like, do you know what you would do if you were to open for a country band in an arena tour? Now, little did they know that this has been something I'd thought about like deeply.
I love that. I love that.
So I had the pitch ready.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, we'll do magic with beer to up your beer sales. I know that you guys have broke records in venues for beer sold. We'll do magic with your merch, your T-shirts, things like this. Let me do magic with backstage passes. And then we'll create some effects so we can bring the camera backstage to the green room or the dressing rooms, and we'll do magic with the artists back there. And they were just like, damn, all right, cool. This is all yes to everything that you just said. And we did it. So back to your question of how do you show up when the audience, because the audience does not know who I am.
Right.
Like I'm just Mr. Magic guy in between what they paid for. So the very first thing I would do when I'd come out is I made somebody's beer refill, somebody's drink. I'd grab somebody's drink, whether it was Mountain Dew, I think the night that we filmed, and we'd make it refill and seal the can, and that was amazing magic. And then we'd take the camera to the back row of the main area. I'd find two girls, and I would make front row tickets appear in one of the girls' mouths. Like that was that was the trick. And from that moment, first of all, like making something appear in a girl's mouth, that made like men all over the arena go, what? And watch. And then when they saw that they went from the back row to the front row, that made people pay attention every time I was out there, because I first gave back.
So smart.
So then I was able to do whatever I wanted the following times.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in visualization and, setting intentions to what you're doing. And I don't think there's an accident to you saying, I've thought of this type of thing and a lot, and then it becoming reality. I would love for you to build on this, but there's gotta be, and it's happened in my life time after time after time, but like there has to be, some sort of truth behind the idea of like, okay, here's where my mind's at, here's where my intention's at, and then you end up there.
Sure.
So what was it from, I've thought about it, to all of a sudden this is reality? Do you think it was purposeful action? Oh
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I even picked up my manager when I had meetings with different managers, for who I wanted to work with. I had a guy and a meeting, and this guy, got another Las Vegas performer a $50 million contract. And I was like, man, I should work with this guy. And then I met with him, and he was like, we need to get you wearing more sparkly stuff, more show business sort of thing. And I was like, oh gosh, the money sounds amazing, but this does not seem like the right guy. And there's no guarantee that the money would be there, because I just think that this is an unwise direction for Magic to take.
Yeah.
So I said no. Instead, I went for a guy in Nashville who, talks like a Nashville hick, but has relationships in country music. And I think, wow, this country music seems to fit my brand of middle America. And I could maybe do the things I want to do, which is open for a country band, if I can utilize his relationships. So yeah, visualizing, if you want to call it that, or just goal setting and making purposeful actions. And his relationships led to, it was a lot through Walmart, because he had a relationship with a guy, and they just said, hey, can you come and do some stuff for free for Walmart? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And it led to several different things. It led to the stuff for Florida Georgia Line. And then it led to me doing an international ad campaign for Coca-Cola. And here's how that happened. I was going to do some magic for Coca-Cola, and, or I was going to do some magic for Walmart, I should say. And they said, hey, just so you know, tomorrow morning, like all the Coca-Cola guys are going to be sitting in the front row for Walmart.
That's cool.
And I was like, amazing. I'm only going to do Coca-Cola magic then. I changed my plan. Like, I didn't do what I was going to do, and I instead did magic with Coke.
That's awesome.
And then a year later, we get a call from a production company, an ad company, and they said, we don't know who you are, but Coca-Cola has specifically asked for you. And I got to do the ad campaign. But the work wasn't stopped there. I got the phone call. They said, what would you do for a Coca-Cola ad campaign? And I called all my magic buddies, my writers, my consultants, my creators, and we created stuff that night, filmed it that night, and sent it to Coke. And I'm sure, I don't know, but I'm sure there was other people in the running for that. They'd be stupid to only have me. And I'm sure I beat those people by having created stuff first and just sending it back. So visualization, purposeful decisions, all of that. Yes. And then also through the Walmart thing, I was able to get a book published and put in Walmart called Adventures of a Kid Magician. So just through me offering to go to Arkansas, Walmart headquarters, and do a free morning of magic, it led to 3 giant pieces of my career that, there's no telling everything else that we've done since then.
Yeah. I mean, 2009, a guy decides to create content online, and here we are less than 10 years later. And you've traveled the world and worked with massive brands. It's really crazy. But, going back to creating that content for online, there's a lot of people creating content online. What is the key, do you think, that for you maybe, or even anybody, to create something that goes viral?
I spoke to the number one magic convention in the world it's called Magic Live, and it's here in Las Vegas. And they said, "Can you speak on how to create a viral video?" And I said, "Yep, I can." And this is years ago, back in 2013, when I was having some crazy viral success back then. But even back then, it doesn't even compare to what I did now, because Facebook changed the game so much.
Yeah.
But the advice stays the same, which is you can't really set out to create a viral video. You just have to create great content that has to be shared. And I still believe this wholeheartedly. You can't hide good content. One of those first viral videos was the Coke Mentos fountains that those guys did, where they created almost like Bellagio-like fountains, but with Coke, Diet Coke and Mentos. They said when they made that video, they only sent it to one person. They didn't send it around. They didn't do a press release or any of that. And the reason it was able to travel from one person was because you can't hide good content. So when I want to create a viral video, I have to create something that people have to share. Because here's the thing. It is noon, and I've watched probably 4 online videos, gosh, even more than that, today.
Right. Just
today. And that's not from me sitting down and looking at content. That's from breakfast to now, just dicking around on the phone. Okay. Have I shared any videos today? No. So those 4 videos didn't meet the threshold of interesting enough that I have to pass it on. And our threshold is getting higher because there's so much content. So for me,
it's kind of like magic too.
Yeah.
That's why you have to keep taking magic to the next level as well, because we're understanding more. We've seen it.
I wish it wasn't that way.
Yeah.
I wish it was 2012. Because there was, when I was making videos back then, it felt like there was nobody doing it. Yeah. Now it feels like everyone. It's really difficult to stand out. And so even me with 1 billion views, I can still do an upload that gets 4,000.
Amazing.
Oh, gee
brutal, right?
Whiz. Like, and that's insane. The video after I posted sawing a baby in half, the next thing I posted got nothing. And the big tech companies, they can flip a switch and change everything for you. They can make you a success, or they can block you, that sort of thing. So the piece of advice is create content that is irrefutably good.
Yeah.
That has to be shared. And then from there, you just have to be wise. So go and see what content is going viral, and then copy, not the content, don't steal content, but steal the essence of what that is. So if I look on Facebook and I saw, okay, titles seem to be important and thumbnails important. Okay. Well, what sort of thing can I create that will have a great title and have a great thumbnail? Sawing a baby in half is a headline. That's a great title. You understand everything within that title, and the thumbnail can give away kind of that money shot, that a baby cut in 2 pieces. That has to be watched. Now at the time, short was better. Facebook was wanting to just kind of tantalize people with short videos. So, I could get this video in under 2 minutes. Great. Then that checked all the boxes. But that's not what it is right now for Facebook this week, and it will change next week, and it will change the week after.
So by the time this episode comes out, this is obsolete, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now it's longer content is preferred. So you need to be upwards of 3 minutes, especially if you want to monetize it and have an ad break in the middle. Because as of this week, ad breaks are a thing. Next month, who knows? It'll be something else. But
yeah,
you have to look at the market. What is being passed around? And you have to find you have to create your own niche for that. So by the time Casey Neistat figured out vlogging on YouTube, he filled that niche. For you to start vlogging on YouTube, Casey Neistat style, you're too late.
Yeah.
Got to create the next thing, figure out what that's going to be, what it's going to look like. So by the time David Copperfield figured out his niche on television, he had it filled, and every clone of David Copperfield was going to fail.
Yeah.
And they did. The only thing that would knock him off his pedestal, thank goodness, was David Blaine, who did the opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, did the absolute opposite of him. David Copperfield has big hair and flowy jackets. David Blaine is a tight black T-shirt with a short buzz haircut. David Blaine is doing small stuff. David Copperfield, the big stuff. I mean, in every way, David Blaine was the opposite of David Copperfield.
Yeah.
David Copperfield was hair and 80s, and David Blaine was MTV 90s.
Yeah.
And
was it that long ago that David Blaine came around? I think it really
1997.
Wow.
Right.
Because I mean, that guy, I still watch, even though I've seen most of his specials, I'll still like see it on Netflix. I'll watch it. Like, it's just so intriguing.
I'm most impressed. I'm breaking a rule that I have for myself, which is you don't say the names of other magicians, on your work, because you're giving promotion to people. But Blaine is the one who's most impressive, because up until that point, we seem to have a history of a magician kind of remaining at the top for about 15 years, being the top guy. Doug Henning, and then David Copperfield, and then David Blaine has now had 20 years of where he seems to be the head, the big guy up top.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens next.
Justin Flom, 30-year run after this interview.
We hope so.
We
hope so.
Yeah, man. You do some incredible stuff for sure. And in this interview, you've dropped so much knowledge for entrepreneurs and people looking to level up. And, one of the things that you mentioned was putting in a decade of work.
Yeah.
And I think that, before my podcast did anything, I was around for a year and a half, showing up every single week. Nobody was paying attention. And that wasn't a decade, but there was a lot of work to build up to that point where I could even start. And like you said, it's, it's not always putting content out. It's learning. It's making connections. It's understanding where you need to be, perfecting the craft before you put it out there. Like, I really believe in that. But what would your second word of advice be to somebody who's looking to make it in whatever their passion is?
It has to be good. You just have the quality. In the it's different for every industry. For magic, I always come back to quality and clarity. But that's just because a lot of times a magic trick will just be a mess. The stuff that goes viral, you can describe in one sentence, but so often the magic that I learned when I was a kid and kind of the old-fashioned stuff is, all right, so we've got 4 jacks in a deck, and they're going to go in between the aces, interlacing, and then the deck of cards is going to separate into red and black, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what just happened.
Yeah.
I can't describe it. I don't know how it worked, but that trick wasn't a good trick. So those types of things, they don't go viral online. They don't. But when it comes to career, it really is having the quality content that you can't ignore, and then listen. If you just listen to what the market says, because check this out, the internet will tell you if it's good. It'll tell you. You just got to listen.
Yeah.
So when a video doesn't get passed around, rarely, very rarely, is the internet wrong. Meaning, only once or twice have I seen a video of mine get uploaded and not do anything, and then later go viral. Where one little thing changed it.
Sure.
Usually the content itself. So what I mean by that is I've had people come to me and they say, man, my monetization is wrong, or maybe it's my thumbnail, or what are you tagging your thing? Do you have the right tags? And I'll watch the content and I'll say, look, it's not anything you're doing other than the content.
Yeah.
That's just it's not good yet. So keep doing it, but you'll know when it's good because people will start responding to it.
For sure. I love it, man. So
that was a mess of an answer. It was kind of all over the place, but it kind of, it just comes back to, it has to be good, and pay attention and see, because people will let you know when it's good.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. So the cool part about this show is I get to interview successful people every single week. How matter, or however you, I can't even talk today. However you define success.
Right.
So my question for you is, how do you define success? And what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
I love this story. Dave Chappelle is a beast, and he seems so smart on so many things. One of the things he said, he wanted to be a successful stand-up comedian. His dad was a doctor. His dad was a teacher. That's right. But he was the first one in his family to not go on to be a successful, doctor, teacher, something like that. And he's going to try and be a comedian. And his dad says, well, how are you going to be successful at this? The chances are so slim. And Dave said to his dad, well, it all depends on your definition of success. If I could make a teacher's salary doing stand-up comedy, then I'd consider that a success, because I'm not a teacher and I'm doing the thing that I love.
Yeah.
And his dad said that's pretty smart. So success to me is the same thing. If I can make a living and I can be comfortable doing what I'm doing, and doing what I love, which is magic and performing for people, to me, that is success. Now, I add to that, for success, I will also want to continue to grow. So if I'm exactly where I am today, 5 years from now, that is not a success. I'm not happy with that. I have to continue to be growing. And sometimes for growing, it doesn't mean income growth. Sometimes for growth, it means material. Material for me being what I say on stage. Comedians say material, magicians say material. That is the stuff that they perform. So I want the biggest mountain of content that I can perform, meaning tricks and stories and things to share. So I just want hours of material. So that's what I'm constantly growing at. So that's what I define success as: just doing what you love and being able to live a comfortable life with it. The goals, of course, are much bigger than that. The goals are the audacious, insane things. I want 50 million a year in income and touring, giant arenas, all of that.
I love it.
Yeah. That's the audacious, crazy dream. That when you say it, people kind of give you the side eye, are you insane? You're a magician. But nobody would have said, if you would have said 1960, because magic was really dead in the 60s. It was looked at as just children's entertainment. Mm-hmm. And then Doug Henning, this mustache, hippie looking magician, he came out of the folk scene, and he made magic cool for the 70s. We look back now and it looks really cheesy because he had rainbows and unicorns on all his shirts. But this was the 70s. It was a crazy time.
He fit right in.
He fit right in, and he made magic cool and made millions of dollars with the most successful Broadway run of any magic show ever at that time, and even held records until just recently. And then David Copperfield took it really cool for the 80s, and he was making $56 million a year for over a decade. He's still, he's the first magician to ever cross $1 billion.
Wow.
And he crossed $1 billion this year. And then David Blaine, he's been seen as real art by organizations like the New Yorker, who would usually be so pretentious as to just turn their nose up at anything.
Oh, right. What's he making a year?
I don't know. I saw him speak for a bunch of magicians, and a guy stood up who was really only concerned with money, and he's like, as a millionaire magician, how do you make money, magic, whatever. And Blaine was so confused at first. He went, I'm not a millionaire. And the guy didn't believe him. And he says, no. But being a millionaire as a magician, and I forget the follow-up of the question, but I do remember what Blaine said. He's like, I don't know what you think, but I don't have $1 million. I've spent every dollar that the network gives me, that I make. All that money goes back into the show that I'm taping. And it's true. He runs out of money every time he does a TV show. So crazy. And he has to call in favors and all this. David Blaine's wisdom comes from, and this is not on the magic side. This is on the business side. On the magic side, it's a whole other thing of wisdom, of trick selection and vibe and scripting. But on the business side, he figured out back in the 90s, if he can do things, if he can give away things for free, mostly his time and his energy and his name, then people will feel indebted to him, and he can trade in on that favor. Yeah. The person he did it with many times, Donald Trump. He hung upside down for his stunt in Trump's, I don't know what, and then he did a bunch of free stuff for Robert De Niro. And those things came back later. Those things came back later for incredible stuff on television and stuff in his specials. De Niro appeared in his specials, and Donald Trump gave him locations to shoot some of the specials. And that was because he gave it away for free. I lost track of where I was going with that.
That's because I cut you off and I said, how much does David Blaine make? But that doesn't...
So the answer is I don't know. I do know that, he can go out and get 6 figures for an event because of his name. But I think him and I both have the same goal, which is first develop that name, that brand, so that people do want to see you. And the development of that brand is probably free, no money in it at first.
Yeah. So the follow-up to that, the success question was, what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success? Is there rituals? Is there?
Yeah. It's lists. Well, gosh, what's a better way to say it? The best way to say it is every day. Houdini had a great line. Someone asked him his secret, and I think he said, they said, what's your secret? And he said, I work 18 hours a day and I like it. I think that was it. Something to that effect.
I love that, though.
It might be misattributed. It might be somebody else, but that concept is still the same. And my secret is I work every day and I like it. Every single day I get up, I've got my to-do list, which is my email inbox. That email inbox should be empty. There should be no emails looking at me. Each of those emails is a thing to do. So if I've got 18 emails in my inbox, which is a good number of what it usually is, that's 18 things that I have to do. And I don't get it clear every day. Absolutely not. I get it clear about once a month. And that's just so when I've got something that I need done, like I've got the Today Show appearance coming up. So I've got to pick up some magic create new magic tricks for that. So I've got that in my inbox. It's just in the subject line. Hey, do this thing for that. Pick up the cards and the lemons that I'm using in that trick, and the paper clips or whatever.
I'll have to tune in and see what you're talking about.
Exactly. It's a brand new trick where we're going to do, it's a crazy thing. And so there's that. It's a list and doing those. And then the other thing is just developing your skill set. It's not as quantifiable because developing my skill set might be taking an hour with a deck of cards and working on this one move. It might be trial and error, research and development, trying to see if I can do this thing with money, where I set it on fire and it does this thing or whatever. Or it might be reading a book, learning this new magic thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know it, but magic as a community, we release secrets to our community, and it's accessible to anybody if you know where the stuff is. That's what's kind of weird about it. And we have the most published works, I think, next to the medical community and the law
That's
community.
Crazy.
You wouldn't know it.
No.
But like every single day, there's a book published about magic. And in New York, there's a guy named Bill Kalush, and he's started a library that digitizes the stuff and all this, and has for the last 500 years literature on magic, everything that's been published. It's absolutely insane.
That is crazy.
Because magic, and I talk about this because I do a lot of magic in churches, and I grew up using magic as a ministry to share the gospel. And I get a lot of questions like, well, how can you do magic as a Christian? Isn't magic lying and deception? And it's very interesting. And one of my viral videos was called I Am Not a Demon, which was kind of a response to these comments that were really calling me a blasphemer and a demon and going to hell and this stuff. Fascinating video. Go check it out. I Am Not a Demon. But that video explains that magic is really brand new, only 500 years old, as a form of entertainment. You know, it's the oldest art form in the world, or they call it the second oldest art form, of course, to prostitution. But the reason it's the oldest art form is deceptive means of claiming that you have powers from God is old as time. It's only 500 years old that we've been doing it for children's birthday parties.
That's great. That's crazy. That's super crazy. But, you know, I've loved so much of this conversation, and I wrap up all these interviews with 5 rapid fire questions. But before we get there, man, how do people find you online? Where do they go to get your content? How do they connect with you?
Hit me up at justinflom.com is the official website. But Facebook seems to be where the videos are at these days with the most views. YouTube is where, you know, I'm going when I look for content. So all my stuff is on YouTube as well, even though the views seem to have left YouTube for a more shareable, bite-sized Facebook. Instagram is at justinflom.com, and Twitter, if you are still willing to go into that, Twitter at justinflom.
I just love how you said Twitter, and then you're like, if you're still going there, I can't do the Twitter thing. I never grew an audience there.
You know what? Twitter just terrifies me because I think we're vilifying people for beliefs and for words and things that I think were held by everyone just 5 years ago. It's pretty crazy. It's a crazy time that we're living in, and it's just frightening is all.
Totally.
It's a weird time, but yeah, that's where to find me. And, any email on my website goes right to me and my team, and we'd love to chat. If you got questions, I love answering questions. I love talking about this stuff. I could go for hours.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. So we're going to get in the 5 rapid fire questions. Some are fun, some are serious. I just ask you this. Make sure you answer within 1 word or at the most 1 sentence. Are you ready?
Got it. Rapid fire, 1 word, 1 sentence. Here we go.
First one is, who's your favorite magician of all time?
Great question. Steve Martin.
That is a crazy answer.
Yeah, man.
I love it. I love it. What is your favorite trick to perform? One you would never, and this might not even, the second part might not even be a thing, but one you wouldn't remove from any of your sets.
Card hit wonder. Google it, YouTube it. It's music and cards.
I saw it. It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. If you could have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Rush Limbaugh.
Nice. That would be a fascinating conversation for sure. At the end of your life, if you could only be remembered for 1 sentence, what would it be?
1 sentence. he changed the way astonishment can be experienced.
Wow. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
I have not done it yet, but I'm not done with my life yet.
We've got plenty of time, man. And I could see you doing that for sure. And obviously this podcast is called the Growth Now Movement. So I wrap up every single episode with this one question. And that is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
Great question. I'd go back to Branson. That was so many things changed then. It's hard to do this as a rapid fire one sentence.
No, you're good. You can go on with this one.
Yeah, what it was, in Branson, I quit drinking. So I'm now 10 years sober. And that was a huge thing for me I just desired to work and be productive more, and cutting out alcohol completely allowed me to be more productive, which, when you start to amp up productivity in your life, amp up organization and a desire to accomplish more and work harder, everything started to change. So, everything within that town, made me unproductive, sloth, unsuccessful, lose money, spend money. Everything within that town was a negative. But it was the catalyst for changing all of that. So I didn't grow in that town. I grew from the point that I left. That was the biggest moment of growth. Probably within just 8 months of leaving, I was on the right path after that.
Awesome. Justin, thank you so much, man, for coming on, sharing your wisdom, sharing your message and your story with my audience. Absolutely love it, dude. And like I said, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Growth Now movement. This is how you can really help me out. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And let's grow this movement to epic heights. And it's all going to be because of you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.